So my name is Chipombao. I'm a project officer at the Shift. I work on human rights and environmental due diligence, and also focusing on partnerships and collaborations with companies and organizations in Europe and the global north, and those in the global south. So we organized this webinar today to talk about partnerships and collaborations in the area of reforestation projects. So I think many of you would agree with me that the issues of nature restoration and environmental sustainability can be quite challenging and also demanding. So as such, we need to have concerted efforts in pulling up our resources together and ideas to bring about good development and change, and also to yield more better results. So even the SDG 17 itself, it stresses on the importance of working together if we're going to achieve meaningful development. So, but again, as I have heard from different actors, this is not just as simple as it may appear in theory. There is always many factors which can limit the success of partnerships. So as such, it's like lack of trust, like poor planning and monitoring, among others. So we need to today to discuss this and see how do other organizations, how do other companies work with other partners in their reforestation projects, and what are their own successes, their challenges, or any other tips that they could give us today. So in the agenda, we have different topics, and the first presenter will be Pierre from Silvanova, and he's going to talk about the forest management alongside the private and other actors. And he will give us their own work and examples of what they're doing here in Europe. And we also have Anushka from Jane Goodall Institute. She's going to talk about their reforestation project that they're doing in Africa and how they have moved the impacts from just planting trees to other more impacts in the communities. And we also have Peter from Bosplas. He is going to talk about their own collaboration that they are doing in the Global South. And then we have Lawrence, who is also with the Co-Write Group. He's going to talk about the private enterprise experience in partnerships for reforestation, what they are doing as Co-Write, and how they are working with the local communities in Africa. And lastly, but not least, we have Quentin from Annabelle. He's going to give an overview of what the importance of multi-stakeholder collaborations in reforestation. So I hope we are going to really enjoy the presentations, and we have a question and answer session after that, and we will look forward to discuss more on these issues. So I'll leave the floor to Pierre, and I'll also share his slides.
Okay, thank you, Chipo, and good afternoon, everybody. So, just before the slides arrives, I just can say that at Silvanova we are not an NGO, not a communication company. We are a forest consultancy expert. We work in forest management for 25 years now, and for 7 years now, we are specialized in restoration of ecosystemic forest landscape ecosystem and reforestation operation. So maybe we can have the presentation, Chipo.
Chipo? Okay. We can
just a moment. Can you see my presentation now? Okay, just hold.
Yeah.
Can you say it now?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. This is the second slide, but we can go on like this.
All right, let me put it on the first slide.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
So you can go further.
okay. So as we are the first speaker of this webinar, maybe very promptly a reminder of why is it so important to support reforestation project and more generally to support forest management. Everybody knows that forest is very important for the humanity, for our life, and forest is a multifunctional ecosystem. That means that we are going to address different challenges regarding environment, but also landscape, also economy and social issues. A well-managed forest will achieve several functions. It provides ecosystemic services such as protection of the water, protections for soils, fight against erosion. It increases biodiversity by creating habitats. It's regulating and mitigating the climate through the CO2 sequestration, and it contributes to our health. It provides wood, of course. It's something. It's important to say that we have not to forget that forest is also a wood provider, and in a well-managed forest, it's totally allowed to cut a tree. It's not a problem, but it's always a question of sustainability. And forest is also creating our landscape. I'm not the only one to recognize all these benefits. United Nations has made the forest one of the sustainable goals, number 50, I think, meaning that it's very important to protect forest ecosystem. Okay.
So that's, yes.
Yeah. So all these goals are not our everyday commitment and everyday work. So what we do for now more than 7 years in reforestation and 25 years in forest management is planting an average this last year more than 1 million trees a year. 1 million trees a year, knowing that we are working only in Europe, it's a huge number of projects because you know that Europe is a very fragmented countries with very fragmented ownership, and we are working at the moment in 10 countries with a lot of different partners, different owners, and to make 1 million trees a year in average. What we are searching is, of course, to increase the forest coverage by converting neglected agricultural land into forest, but especially in Europe, where there's a real competition for the land use, it's very difficult to find new land to be forested. So we not only consider the extension of forest coverage, but also we restore already existing forest by giving always an added value compared to the previous situation. We work, for example, after storms, after forest fire, after pest and other disease. For example, at the moment in Belgium and other European countries, we have very important problems of bark beetle on the Epicea abies. So there's a lot of forest land to be restored, and we are working on that issue. We are not there, of course, to support the owners to plant new trees after normal harvesting when he sell the the logs to the timber industry. It's not our goal. We are always there to restore when something is happening, and there's a lot of things to do because we have a lot of disease. So yeah. Yeah, what we do regarding the partnership, because of course we have a lot of partners to achieve these goals. We work with some committed company, institution, government structure, no matter their size and their activities, but the project really has to make sense. When we say committed companies, most of the time, of course, you understand that it's a corporate sector, but we are not. We are most of the time in the shadow. In the shadow, why? Because we are not addressing directly corporate companies, but we work as technical partner for key partners. The main key partners for us are Jane Goodall Institute, and you will hear to Anushka just after our presentation, and Reforestation, leader in World Reforestation Action. We have other partners, of course, but we are the technical partner for this organization. So the commitment to protect all the committed partners, to make sure that the action makes sense, that it's not only a communication tool, or I don't like the word, but greenwashing. We use our technical knowledge to select relevant projects. We are responsible for finding the land, for sourcing the land, but also to design, to set up, and to assess the project, which must be as perfect as possible technically. We are also managing the finance. We are very transparent of the cost of the project, and particularly we consider, for example, in Europe, when we are not, we work with actors. It's not Africa or South America where there's a big problem. We consider it normal that the forest owners in Europe share the cost with us. So we are a support. We help them to put project into action. Who are missing some part of the finance, but generally the costs are shared between the forest owners and the sponsor. We are generally responsible for the conservation of the forest for a period minimum of 30 years. That means that, of course, the forest will continue to be managed normally. So there's some silviculture operations such as thinning, pruning. It's allowed to cut a tree, as I said, but it's a forest, and it has to remain a forest for a minimum period of 30 years. There's also a possibility to visit the forest. We are generally very open to share our knowledge, to explain our work with to share our work with our contributor. It's on appointment, but we can organize event to speak about our job and to explain how a forest has to be managed. There's also some possibility to communicate on the commitment. We send report, we send for pictures. Of course, it's very important that the project is monitoring, not only planting a tree or restoring a forest is something, of course, but it's very important. The follow-up is very important, and also the monitoring of the project. Well, some examples of the project we are doing in Belgium and in Europe. With Jane Goodall, we are the partner for one of the partner in Belgium of Jane Goodall for the Forest in One Day operation. Maybe Veronique, you can tell us some words about this.
It's a multi-participative work involving many participants. In this case, we have Luminous with a corporate company who has the idea to plant in Belgium and in Africa. Then they call Jane Goodall Institute to make an arrangement with them, and Jane Goodall agreed, and they decided to find some technical operators in Belgium. It was us and Bus Plus, we will be discussing later also. And we find a place in the city, one more partner, and it's a participative plantation, so it means the inhabitants of the city are coming to plant with us. So it's a multi-partners project involving many persons and all of them have a specific objective to reach. Some other example, the slide after, example with other companies who want to plant for several reasons. For the example we have taken here, are example for smaller and bigger company, whatever the activities and the size. And the motivation are sometimes for a birthday, a company birthday, for example, or for the staff, like a gift. It could be an incentive to make an operation which has a sense for the participant. It could be something of corporate social responsibility plans and one of the objective. And this kind of project, we do that by our own or with partners like Reforestation or Jane Goodall, as we say. So we have some other pictures after to show how it could be participative and involving. We have also insisted on this picture showing this certification, which is a very strong one, and in Belgium and further on international view. And the picture after, if we continue, we have a very close relation with some planter here in Belgium, and we're used to work with them and to give a visibility to each of us. The last slide is explaining that not in Belgium, in the other countries where we are working, we have very close relation with some specialists there who manage the project for us. We visit them often on a regular basis, but they are the one who have the technical expertise on site. So what we wanted to say, it's possible to make I would say tailor-made or customized project involving many partners. And to succeed, it has to be defined from the beginning, who is doing what and what are our objectives. Yeah. It would be my conclusion.
Yes, from my side, maybe the last words. For us as a technical actor, the project is the most important thing. After we can speak of commitment, communication, marketing, everything. And it's not a problem for us, of course. We are very happy to collaborate with so many different actors, but we are a technical partner, and really the project has to be yes, as perfect as possible, and it really has to make sense. If the project is good, after there's a lot of things to do, and nobody can complain about it. But first the project. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pierre and Veronique, for your detailed presentation. Silvanova is very experienced and has more than 28 years of experience in forest management. And I'm really happy that you agreed to share your insights into this. So we're going to move to the next presenter, Anuska from Jane Goodall Institute, Belgium, and she's the executive director there, and she will tell us also about their projects in Africa that they're doing, and I think you're going to enjoy this. Over to you.
You set expectations very high, Chipo, but thank you very much for the introduction, and also to Silvanova for always their great collaboration, which I will also emphasize a little bit more. We're one of the new members of the Shift, so I'm very happy to join this wonderful crowd of people. I've prepared also a presentation with some visuals that will underline what I will have to say. So if I'm not mistaken, you see my screen now, is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
Great, thank you so much. So as Chip already said, I will focus on how our reforestation impacts go beyond tree planting and also affect mainly the local communities. But before that, I just want to say a little bit more, not too long, about our organization. So we're the Jane Goodall Institute for Belgium, of course, named after our founder, Dr. Jane Goodall, a world famous primatologist and conservationist. She became well known because of her groundbreaking research and discoveries on chimpanzees, a research that started already over 60 years ago. So she was the first to note and to write down that chimpanzees use tools, for example, as you can see in the middle picture, and at that time that rocked the scientific world and made us redefine how we see animals. So to make a long skip, in 1977, she founded the Jane Goodall Institute after noting that she was doing a lot of research on chimpanzees, but that actually their habitats were in danger because they were declining. And since 1977, there are now 30 national chapters. We call ourselves worldwide, of which 8 in EU countries. And we have a high representation also in Africa. So the organization focuses on improving the lives of animals, people, and environment, which gives us the lovely and appropriate acronym APE. So here in Belgium, we focus our activities on forest planting actions, both in Belgium and, well, I put here Burundi because I'm focusing on Burundi, but we also work in some other African countries. We have a youth empowerment program, Roots and Shoots, and we raise awareness and funds for chimpanzee programs in South Africa and Senegal. But I will focus a little bit more about our tree planting activities, our forest planting. I know that Silvanova, Pierre, you don't like to say that we plant a forest in one day, and you're absolutely right. We create forests that bring eventually life to animals and people. But of course, you can't grow a forest in one day. It takes time to grow, but at least we plant it in one day. So our activities focus mainly in Belgium and in Africa. We always try to encourage that we work, that our work has an impact both in Belgium and in Africa. So our forest planting activities here in Belgium are, as already said, Forest in One Day, a public planting day that we execute thanks to Luminous and our technical partner Silvanova and the Bosgroepen. You already heard about that, so I won't elaborate much more. And then we are also focusing now on setting up high quality carbon offsetting projects in Africa because we're doing so much tree planting there. And we have the capacity to really start implementing high quality carbon offsetting projects. We also got engaged with a dynamic company called Atlas Go, who do digital tree planting activities with us. And if you'd like to know more, I invite you to contact me after the call. So, as I said, I would like to focus on what we're doing in Burundi. Burundi is a small country that is located Central East Africa, and it has over 12 million inhabitants that live on a surface of 27,000 kilometers. There are 3 known locations where the eastern chimpanzee occurs, and that is a subspecies of the common chimpanzee, which is listed as endangered on IUCN's Red List. It's still declining in population, and that is expected to continue because of hunting and loss of habitat. So that is also why we are focusing on reforestation in Burundi. So Burundi's natural environment is highly degraded due to constant exploitation of natural capital. And the main drivers of forest degradation are socio-political crises in the past. There have been conflicts that had an immense impact on the natural environment. There's a high population growth, which puts pressure, of course, on the natural resources, as the population is clearing forests to undertake agricultural practices that are not sustainable. Then the population is highly dependent on biofuels. 90% of the local people use wood for their energy supply. So that is also, of course, causing indoor pollution, etc. And then climate change has an increased frequency and severity of natural disasters, which you can also see an example of. It's not a very clear picture, but there are immense mudslides happening in the country. So all these drivers, of course, they have an immense impact on the natural habitat. It causes biodiversity loss and habitat loss for chimpanzees and other animals. Erosion causes the loss of lives. An estimated 6,000 people per year lose their lives due to mudslides. A loss of essential goods and services for our local communities. As I said, energy coming from wood is a main cause. It also causes a lot of water pollution, as well as loss of agricultural productivity, and it accelerates climate change. So that has a vice versa effect. So in our view, reforestation is one of the best solutions to these problems. So our reforestation activities have the goal to restore degraded landscapes with indigenous tree species. So we focus on agroforestry, timber, and medicinal trees and plants. Our goal is also to conserve water and soil by stabilizing riverbanks with red bamboo that is native to Burundi. And we raise awareness with local communities about the protection of the planted seedlings. So we do that through the production of seedlings at our own nurseries throughout Burundi. And we plant those seedlings at strategically chosen locations. And of course, we maintain and monitor the planted seedlings to ensure that they recover well. We provide workshops and training sessions to local communities and at schools, and that improves the living conditions of the local population. So our work has an impact both environmental and socially. So to date, we have created, as already said, several nurseries and as well as aquaculture ponds. We empower spokespeople for groups of former soldiers. So our coordinator is a former child soldier, for example. And we provide concrete support for environmental education programs in schools. And to date, we have planted already a dazzling number of 4.8 million trees in Burundi. So Chipo asked me to also elaborate a little bit more on the benefits and the challenges of working with local NGOs and communities. And in my view, it's really a benefit that we have the boots in the ground, as I always say. If our people have a lot of field experience, you see our coordinator here in the picture on the right. And if I need to know something, it's always a WhatsApp message away. That also helps me to get direct feedback about their activities. That can be either positive or negative feedback if they have some challenges. And we're also very close to local communities, and this really increases the incentives for our project activities. It also allows us to have an impact on where it's most needed. And because we send directly the funds raised to our projects, we maintain very small overheads, which allows us to give a high allocation to project activities. Of course, there are also some challenges in working with local NGOs and communities. We mainly face that there is a lack of capacities in terms of experience and skills, which for me results then often in communication challenges, reporting, monitoring of the project. That is also due to human resources challenges and financial resources that are always short. In addition, there can be political or administrative barriers as well as internal conflicts, which is sometimes the case in Burundi with the different communities that live there. So Dr. Goodall discovered already a long time ago that when we put local communities at the heart of conservation, we can improve the life of animals, people, and the environment. So the Jane Goodall Institute advances a holistic approach to bring the power of community-centered conservation to life. And we do that through public awareness and environmental education. So for example, we provide trainings on poaching and trafficking for the bushmeat and exotic pet trade, as well as the benefits of protecting their local environments. We co-develop conservation action plans for healthy habitats. So we work with local communities and governments and organizational partners to develop and implement conservation action plans for key chimpanzee habitats and to support the genetic and cultural diversity of chimpanzees in the wild and their habitats. We look at alternative livelihood projects together with the communities living in or near chimpanzee habitats to launch alternative habitat projects that can improve their incomes and their capacity to take care of natural resources. Then we focus on gender health and conservation by providing access to healthcare, clean water, education, and family planning. And Roots and Shoots is our global youth leadership program that is already active in over 100 countries. And through Roots and Shoots, participants identify and address problems in their communities, while they're also becoming compassionate leaders that our planet needs. I've provided a web link and you will have my slides after this presentation if you would like to know more about that. To conclude with the words of our founder, what you do makes a difference and you have to decide what kind of difference you want to make. So I challenge you, how do you make a difference? Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you, Anushka, for such a insight presentation. I liked it when you said when we put people at the center of development, then even the environmental sustainability projects, the reforestation projects that you'll be doing, it makes more sense and it yields much better results when local people are included. So without wasting too much time, I will move on to Peter van der Sijp. And Peter van der Sijp is the policy officer at BosPlus, and he's going to also share their insights into the various collaborations that they've been doing on the reforestation projects in their organization. So over to you, Peter.
Yes, thank you, Shipo. I'm going to share my presentation. It's loading. Can you all see my presentation?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Okay, so yeah, thanks again, Chipo, and to the Shift for inviting us and allowing us to share a bit recommendations based on our experience with implementing reforestation projects in Africa and Latin America. Also, thanks to the other speakers, I'll try to be as complimentary as possible because a lot of correct and interesting things have already been said. I'll start off with a very short introduction of BosPlus, who we are and how we operate, and then provide recommendations based on two cases of projects we're running currently in Africa and Latin America. So very short, the importance of forests and addressing problems like deforestation has already been mentioned. So as BosPlus, we try to mitigate that problem. We work basically on more and better forests, and we do that in Belgium and Flanders as well as Latin America and Africa. And a more technical approach to more and better forests is that we try to strengthen the resilience of forest landscapes and the communities living in these landscapes. So communities, meaning people who are living in, around, and from these forests, using hopefully sustainably all the benefits that forests provide. And we do this mostly through a development cooperation program, as we are an NGO. So mostly being funded by Belgian development cooperation, but we also have other sources of funding, including private actors. We also have our own carbon offsetting tool, Tricological. And so we implement these projects through a coherent program in the different countries. As Boss Plus, what we mostly do is we facilitate funding, we facilitate a coherent and impactful program, but we work together with local partners. So it's national NGOs who really design and run the projects. We provide capacity building tailored to their needs whenever relevant. We also facilitate exchanges between partners, but it's really the partners who implement the projects. We also, so we do a lot of reforestation, but we always take a holistic approach to our projects. So that's also the notion of forest landscapes. So we work with, we do reforestation, but also forest conservation, sustainable forest management for wood extraction, as well as agroforestry, and we work on governance. And so that's the landscape part. The other important part, crucial part of resilience is the social aspect. So resilience is also about the interdependency between society and nature, between these people, these communities, and their forests. And so that's for us, that's the keystone, that's the cornerstone of really successful project implementation. It's really focusing on these communities, strengthening their capacities, but also empowering them. And we take the same approach to our partners, working with our partners as well. So the first case is a project we're running in Uganda. Our local partner there is Chininga Forest Foundation. Basically, they operate in a context where there's huge, strongly degraded landscapes with very little forest fragments remaining. And what they do is they work directly together with farmers to increase tree cover in their farm system. So basically agroforestry. And they also have a side project where they assist, facilitates natural forest regeneration in a protected area. And for us, from their experience, what is important notions of criteria for success is choosing the right tree for the right species, working with native tree species for the right place. So a bit tailoring to the needs of the farmers, which benefits they would like to receive from these trees. And that's already more known, but what's really important is that in this case, success is largely due as well to a very high frequency of monitoring visits, which creates trust with the farmers, but also raises interest. If you have that many visits, if the project team dedicates that much attention to the trees, it must be that it's something worthwhile. And also what's really important is the technical expertise of local staff. So local staff who not only know the local context, can establish trust relationships with farmers, even local language, but they're also the ones who know where to collect seeds for the right trees, and things like that. So that's a very important element. Another project they're running is this. It's really interesting. It's sort of two birds, one stone. There is this on the left picture. You can see this an invasive species. It's a beautiful flower, but it really inhibits forest, natural regeneration of forests, even within natural parks, protected areas. And so they partnered up with the Ugandan Wildlife Authority that's protecting these parks for a project that actually removes the species and converts it into eco charcoal. And for these these cook stoves, this eco charcoal processing. We also work together with Enable, Belgian Development Corporation. So the main takeaway from that one is that it's important to work with partners who are really embedded in the local context, in the landscape, who are known for their expertise, because they were approached by, for example, by the UWA to implement this project. And then the second case is more, this isn't that directly with farmers. We also work with farmers, but in this case, we work together more with really community organizations. So it's a project in Peru, working also with a national NGO who runs more the technical side of the project, but also working with a representative body of indigenous communities. And what we do with them together, they co-manage, co-protect nature reserves together with the Peruvian government, and they also work on forest restoration. And besides the activities on the ground, the restoration activities, the project really strongly focuses on empowering these communities and their representative organizations. And so this is one of the successes of this project, which showcases the importance of really taking into account the needs and the goals of the communities themselves. So during the project, the communities identified actually a native species, a new species of cocoa within the nature reserve that they're protecting. And so currently, this cocoa won the prize for best cocoa in Peru in 2019. And so currently they're sustainably extracting the cocoa species and propagating it for agroforestry activities in cocoa and chocolate production. And the takeaway from this is the reason why this was so successful is because of the collaboration between multiple actors. So there's civil society, which is both supporting, but the local partners on the ground, other Belgian Development Corporation actors, but also the Peruvian government, different branches of the government supporting the project, and most importantly of all, centered around the communities themselves. And so I think most of the recommendations have already been addressed through these cases. If there's questions afterwards, I'm happy to address them. But here I try to summarize them as well. So by using the analogy with that's usually more appropriate for how to successfully implement a reforestation project, the more technical side. But make the analogy with how these partnerships and how engaging local partners as well as these communities, how that can work. And so it's about, when we say we work with tree growing rather than tree planting. It's about using a more holistic approach, a more long-term approach, establishing these trust relationships. It's also about the right species in the right place. Can be there again. It's the importance of working with local partners embedded in the local context, with local staff, and tailoring a bit projects really specifically to the local context. And then finally, going beyond safeguards, so meaning that beyond merely engaging communities to as beneficiaries or as in sort of avoiding damage or merely helping them. It's really about focusing on their needs, their goals, and empowering them to really successfully implement their own restoration projects and try to involve them as much as possible as equal partners. So that's it from my side. I hope that has been clear, and if there's any questions, yeah, afterwards, happy to address them.
Yeah, thank you so much, Peter, for such an interesting presentation, and stressing again the importance of involving the local communities in all the projects that you are doing. And I see here that our time is really running so fast. So I'll ask Lawrence Goossens from CoRight to come and do his presentation and share with us some insights on the specific projects that they are doing in Africa. And how, as a private enterprise, they are also partnering up for reforestation activities, and also how they're involving the local communities in these projects. So over to you, Lawrence.
Thank you for the introduction, Chipo, and thanks again to the Shift for inviting us. I know it was last minute. So I'm here to present our project In situ Pelende. In situ means in the local language forest. Pelende is the region in which we're operating. So what is our story? Why the Colorado group plants its trees in Africa? Well, there's only so much one can do to reduce one's emissions. Colorado Group sustainability is in the DNA. There are always improvements being made to reduce the emissions we have. We have shops that are really energy efficient, and we're trying to implement and make them even more efficient. But at some point, you won't be able to reduce all the emissions of all your activities. So we started to look at how can we also contribute, and yeah, planting trees is actually one of these options there is. So the project itself in general is a 25-year project. So it's not planting the trees and leaving, as Boss Plus mentioned as well. It's really about staying there with the local community and doing everything right. So I'll also explain how we kind of devised the project itself. So we have 4 main pillars in the project. One is the reforestation part, and actually I think we all know that's the most easy part. Multiple people have said it here today. The most difficult part is how to get the people involved, how to get ownership over the forest, how to show the people what the value can be of a forest, how to reduce or help the agroeconomics that people have. So we have 4 pillars, and they're all kind of related in the success of this project. So we're in Congo right now operating, and as you can see here in the background, we're in the Kwango province. It's one of the poorest regions in Congo, but you see a lot of slash and burn activities. Most of it, yeah, humane impact, of course. People are just chopping down the trees to get charcoal or to burn the land and to plant their crops. We have still a lot of primary forests left in the valleys all around the concession, but it's really starting to degrade. You can see all the damage by fires all around. So how did it start? Well, of course, as Silvanova also said, to find a lot of ground in Europe, it's not easy. So we started looking at different countries. Where could we do such a project? Do we have a link with a certain country? And Congo was one of the most easy options for us, as we have some links over here. So we started by doing location scouting together with 2 NGOs. We really want to look for land that is degraded, where the population is really willing to contribute. So the NGOs itself did together with us the location scouting. It was basically sitting down with the local community, talking about, are you interested in doing a reforestation project or not? So we're lucky that we're working together with a really local leader. He's quite known in the area. He is like a king in the area, and he owns a lot of land. And he studied agronomy. He has worked in NGOs, and now he's fulfilling the title of the landowner over there. So we have this local leader, and then we have 2 big groupements which have several villages. We have a river crossing our concession, and we have installed 1 NGO on one side of the project and 1 NGO on the other side. So how did we organize the project then? So our 2 NGOs, they are really specialized in the reforestation part itself. So for this first pillar, the reforestation part, it's us who do together with the NGOs the planning and the funding. And it are the NGOs who do the recruiting of the people and who bring the local expertise about the local trees for planting. But for the other pillars, as we are using 2 different NGOs, We really needed to bundle the social programs, make it clear, harmonized, and that's why we're working in a different way. The NGOs, for sure, they are on site, but they're mainly focusing on the reforestation part. And then we have community advisors and a kind of committee, development committee board with this local leader and with other local leaders. In these meetings, we discuss strategy, how can we improve the conditions of the population, what kind of crops can we introduce. So we discuss all kinds of things. So here you can see an example of primary forest and one of the nurseries we have installed. We have installed several billboards all around the concession. It's all about sensibilizing, not burning, not chopping. This is another pépinière, tree nursery we have in place. So our end goal is to have 10,000 hectares and 12 million trees planted. We also focus clearly on biodiversity. We chose about 15 different species, local species, that all have an added value for the community. Like some species attract caterpillars, and it's really known that the caterpillar is like a delicatessen. But people are losing the amount of caterpillars nowadays, and they kind of don't know why the amount of caterpillars is reducing. So it's talking to the people, giving them a link, like caterpillars, they come to these kind of trees, so that's why we're planting these trees. So that's just an example of one species we're planting. Then, as said, a large part of the project is as well how to talk with the population, how to sensibilize them, how to engage them in the project. We do that in several different levels. Often it's just sit downs in the different villages in which we just talk openly about the project, about the goals, about their concerns, everything. But that's not the only thing we do. So we have our local leader, we have the province, and we have the national level, the Minister of Environment. So we really try to responsibilize everyone on every level in this project, because it's in the end for the benefit of the people itself. So the third part is the agroeconomy. Here is an example of manioc mills we installed. We have 11 installed in the different villages. This is just the beginning, but then we're also starting to plow community fields, make people understand other ways of doing agriculture, how to use crop rotation, how to use that in a system of agroforestry, how the forest can aid in growing their crops. So there's a lot of programs we're starting now on that aspect as well. Then the nurseries we're developing for the trees, of course. Well, it's kind of also helping the people learn them a skill set, how to take care of a plant, how to grow a plant. They can start growing fruit trees and stuff in the nurseries. So it's really helping them understand the value of planting a fruit tree or planting vegetables or everything. And then the fourth pillar we have is social infrastructure. So we have a concession agreement for 25 years with the people over there, in which they also made their demands clear. They also wanted something in return, of course. So they asked, for example, for a bridge. So I told you there's a river crossing our concession. And it's a really symbolic route. It's an ancient historic route in which Patrice Lumumba fled from the Belgians. So they have a lot of value for that road, and they really want to see a bridge reconnect the communities, because they have to take a huge detour nowadays to just get from one side of the concession to the other. So that was one of their first demands, actually. And then the other demands are mainly rehabilitating schools, medical posts, giving them more access to drinking water and stuff like that. So we have an entire chronogram in which we will help develop also the infrastructure of the community. So last but not least, I want to show you what Colruyt Group has been working at. Since 2008, Colruyt Group is monitoring its emissions. Here you can see the emissions in tons. And you could see them rising. But at this time, we really started investing more and more in green technology to push down our emission curve. So as you can see, we're still trying to push it down and down and down. But as I said in the beginning, yeah, you cannot reduce every emission. So by planting these trees, we hope as from 2030 to be net zero carbon neutral. Thank you for listening. And here you can see just the size of one of the 3 nurseries we have in place.
Thank you so much, Lawrence. When I first spoke with you regarding your project, I could really feel the passion and the energy that you have for this project. And it really made sense for me because when we were talking about involving the local community and how you try to encourage indigenous knowledge system into your project, it really made sense to me. So thank you once more for sharing these insights. And I'll now leave the time to Quentin Reinhardt, who is the climate and forest expert from Enabel. And he's going to also just give a summary of why we are emphasizing more on partnerships and what is the value partnership brings to reforestation projects and to development as a topic, as a big agenda. So Quentin, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chipo. Good afternoon,
just before
everyone.
you start, I would want also to have everyone ready with their questions. If you have a question, you can already type it in the chat so that after this presentation, we already jump into the discussions and question and answer session. So if you have a question, and maybe if you also know where to whom the question is directed to, just indicate it in the chat. So over to you, Quentin.
All right, thank you very much. My name is Quentin. I work as a climate and forest expert for Enabel, which is the Belgian development agency implementing the Belgian development cooperation in some 20 countries. And Enabel has set the global challenges that we want to contribute to, which are on the screen: climate change and environment, human mobility, urbanization, peace and security, and social and economic inequality. So Chipo tasked me to talk about the importance of multi-stakeholder collaborations, and I think many things have already been said today. I just want to highlight that indeed forest and landscape restoration, it's a process, and the steps of the process matter probably as much as the end result. It's a process that brings people together to identify and implement practices to restore an agreed balance of the ecological, social, and economic benefits of forests. So landscapes are mosaics of multiple and interconnected land uses with many different stakeholders, such as local communities, water users, industries, governments, or civil society. And all of these stakeholders must be recognized in a forest and landscape restoration project and engaged in decision making. That's very important, to identify the stakeholders and engage them from the onset. So that's the first step generally, identifying, engaging all the different stakeholders and developing their capacities. And what's the value of this? Well, it's a greater ownership, efficiency, equity, transparency, and accountability. And at the end of the day, engaging all the stakeholders will lead to greater impact and sustainability of the project. So yeah, partnerships are definitely essential for successful outcomes of forest and landscape restoration. And in particular, we can highlight the local stakeholders engagement, as it has already been said, as well as the presence of enabling conditions such as land use planning, land tenure, and also sustain capacities and resources for the project. So I also gave some thoughts to the potential roles and complementarities of the various stakeholders, and we've talked a lot already about local communities, which are critical to the success of the project. Indeed, planting activities are labor intensive, and this is a good opportunity to involve the communities. And the local communities will play a critical role in maintaining the restored site and to help and to ensure that degradation does not occur anymore. Because as a matter of fact, local populations are also the ones that are degrading the land for their basic needs. So involving them in maintaining the site is critical for the success of the interventions. As far as the local authorities are concerned, we can say that they will be creating the enabling conditions for a reforestation project. And when talking about enabling conditions, we can think to the legal, regulatory, and financial frameworks for a reforestation project, as well as to the land use planning. Where basically is land available? Where can we plant trees? Land tenure. Who does the land belong to? Is there a development plan for the commune? So it's very important to get the local authorities involved from the onset to make sure that the enabling conditions are there for a successful operation. Then the development partners, research organization are there basically to support local authorities, local communities in building their capacities for the various aspects of the project. And the private operators can, among other things, mobilize financial resources and expertise, because obviously restoration comes at cost. So although the long-term impact of an intervention will depend on the local communities, it's important to have a business case for the project. And the private actors are very good at it. They can, provide a cost-benefit analysis and develop the business case for the project. And having that in hand from the onset will help to basically engage the communities and also clarify their expectations, making sure that what they can get from the project is very important, and clarify that is very important. How can actors collaborate? I took the example of an experience in Niger on community management of restored sites. There is there a management committee, COGES, Comité de Gestion in French, management committee, which has different responsibilities, such as ensuring the maintenance, the monitoring, enforcing bylaws for sustainable use of restored sites, linking the community and the government on all site-related matters, managing the resources, etc. So basically setting a management committee, gathering representatives from all the different stakeholders is very important. And that's basically what should be done for each reforestation project. There is there on the screen different steps to do that, but I think that has already been said. Community information, awareness raising, participatory setup of an executive office, capacity development, and operationalization with an action plan. Lastly and briefly, I just wanted to introduce the Enabel's climate program in the Sahel that's about to start. It's a 50 million project for 5 years, 2022-2026, with activities in Senegal, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger on climate change adaptation and sustainable land and water management. So this project will involve various stakeholders, local communities, especially women and youth, private operators, and local authorities. Results that are expected from this project are 10,000 hectares that will be sustainably managed in each country with a conservation program, restoration program, and sustainable land management programs. And as you can see on the screen, some amount of beneficiaries in the different countries. So that's it for my presentation. I tried to be very brief. Thank you, Chipo, for the opportunity, and looking forward for the discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you once more, Quentin. And you've really rightly summarized everything on partnerships and what we are talking about. So I think every presenter had the opportunity to share their insights and their stories. Now is the time for us to discuss a bit on this. And if you have any questions, just let me know, and we try to do the discussions now. But there's already some questions in the chat, I see. There's a question for Lawrence. Saying that question for Lawrence by Core, right? Some products you sell are partly responsible for deforestation. His example is Nutella and palm oil. Wouldn't it be more beneficial to fully boycott products that participate in deforestation instead of only participating in reforestation and having to wait for these new trees to grow?
Yeah, well, it's a very good question, of course. We're still a retailer. I'm not on the retail side, but I can tell you that Colruyt is really trying to do something about that. For example, the Eco Score. I don't know if people heard of it. Well, it's basically giving a rating to your food, how sustainable it is. You have the Nutri-Score, people know it by now, but Colruyt really wants to implement the Eco Score as well, to push suppliers and consumers as well to be fully aware of what you're buying. So we're really trying to sensibilize the consumer itself on that side with the Eco Score. So yeah, that's something we can do, of course, but as you know, Colruyt is also a hard negotiator. So I know, for example, with Nutella, there's always battles going on about certain stuff.
Okay, thanks, Lawrence, for clarifying on that. That was really an interesting question. And there's also another remark from Philip, and saying that in addition to this sensible remark, I think it was just a remark on fishing, that it reduces carbon captation possibilities of seas far more than forests can compensate for. Okay, so there is another question from Nele, and saying that to Silva Nova, what type of certification do you have, and are there any climate-related claims?
No, regarding certification and especially climate, if you think about CO2 certificate, you have to do that. You have to know that in Europe, there are no official certification except in France with label bas carbone, but we have not the capacity to provide official CO2 certification. So we always speak not only about CO2, but about general benefits of the forest, especially in Europe. And we are not focused on CO2. If we speak only, if we are not speaking about CO2, but about sustainability of our management, we are at Silvanova FSC certified. We are holder of group certification FSC for Belgium and France, and we always take care of the management of the forest. We are going to have a project, but for us, certification is not essential. We think that we have the capacity to assess the sustainability of the forest management. It's one of our mission is to assess and to provide only sustainable project. But in some case, and in most of the case, we work on FSC or sometimes PFC certified forest here in Europe. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for your response. And there's another question coming from Anne. She's saying, how about reforestation in our own neighborhood or country? Is this a good idea, or does that cost way too much for a landowner? Anyone wants to respond on that?
Maybe the question is to know if it's a good idea to work in Europe, for example. Is it useful to work in Europe? I think that it's also useful to work in Europe. Of course, if you want to have a very huge impact on CO2, for example, it's most efficient to work in Africa, or to work. It's most efficient and it's more easy also to work in Africa, such as Lawrence said. If you want to have an impact, it's necessary to have land available, for example. And in Europe, it's very difficult. But in fact, I think it's important to have the impact on great land, and also to have the capacity to mobilize the people. And where are generally the corporate sponsor we are working with? Their staff are in Europe, their clients are in Europe. So for us, it's important to work on both sides.
Mm-hmm. And I know that you, Silvanova, you are also doing much of your work here in Europe and planting trees here in Belgium. So if you need help maybe on that, if you are interested on doing any projects on reforestation, you could also easily contact them on that. So I think we have come to the end of our discussion, unless if there's anyone else who have a burning question. Okay, just one more and then we wrap this up. To quickly come back to certification, if I understood well, BOS Plus does offer climate offsetting credits. So do these only come from Africa, Latin America, or where?
I'll first, because I wanted to add as well to one of the previous questions, so I'll jump quickly to that one after that. Maybe just to clarify, I think it's a bit linked with the other comments, the previous comments. It's we need everything. So we need to restore forests. There is a need for restoring forests in Europe, as well as in Africa and Latin America. Also, the choosing between should we focus on restoring forests or reforestation, or should we focus on stopping deforestation? It's not an either or story. We need both, and we actually need to really divert much more resources to that. So that is a general comment. Also, if you're a private landowner and you're really interested in restoring reforestation on your own property, you can always contact us. I'm not an expert on that myself, but I have colleagues who are. And on the question of certification, so we have a we have a tool which is called Tricological, and we have projects in Africa. And currently, we have projects mostly running in Africa and Latin America. But it goes through Belgium, and we also plant trees here in Belgium. The thing is, as it's being said, it's much more costly. It's to do this in Belgium as in these tropical countries, mostly for labor costs. So yeah, we focus mostly on Africa and Latin America.
Okay, thank you so much again once more. And just to wrap up this, before maybe we close out, I have already put a link for a short survey. It's just 3 questions to have your own opinions on this webinar and what you can improve on. So the link is in the chat. Could you kindly fill it in before you leave? And I've also inserted another link for our General Assembly. We are going to have a General Assembly, the shift on 19 May, and it's going to be at the Grand Hospice. So it's going to be a very great moment to meet, exchange, and reconnect on sustainability. And we are going to have a variety of animated workshops on themes such as climate, human rights, biodiversity, inclusion network, and SDGs. So it's going to be really great, and it will be a networking opportunity to get together with every one of you, as well as meeting our new challenges, young challenges. So I hope we can have some moments again together on 19 May and get to interact. So just before I close this session, let me just share this. There is an African proverb that says that if you want to travel if you want to travel far, you have to go with partners. So I hope that this webinar has encouraged you and motivated you to take up initiatives to collaborate and work together on the reforestation project. So I would now like to thank everyone for participating and being here. It really means a lot, and we have to continue talk about partnerships, collaborations, reforestation, and if you have any issues, if you have any interesting stories on this aspect that you would really maybe like to share with us, please don't hesitate to get in touch with us, and would really love to hear your stories, or if there is any partnerships that are going to emerge as a result of you networking with other members here. We would love to hear all those stories, because it makes our work great, and we feel encouraged when you do that. So thank you once more for today, and I hope that we meet again soon.